Welcome, folks. For anybody watching at home, we're on both the usual cable channel and by Zoom and also by YouTube. And if you're a citizen of this community out there watching what we do, I appreciate that you care enough about your community to watch us. I'm going to make a motion to open the meeting. Got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the meeting is open. This is a work session, so just to orient everybody on applicant items, all we're talking about is the state of the record, completeness, and anything else we might need. We do not deliberate, and like everybody else, the applicants are welcome to view us and be with us as attendees, but we don't talk to the applicants during work sessions. We're just assessing what's out there. If there's something that we think we need, we can communicate and they'll know about it. We are gonna, next Wednesday, we'll see all three of these applicant issues come up. We'll discuss them, we'll deliberate on them, we'll get as far as we can. Tonight, we're just looking at the state of the record. So the first thing up is 1165 Grecian. We've spent quite a bit of time discussing this one. We have the Mazur report and we have the response to the Mazur report. I've spent some time looking at what we've gotten in. I think probably everybody has. Is there anything that we don't have in the record that somebody thinks they need to have a complete record and determine and decide how they're going to cast their vote on consistency?
Yeah, I have a couple of quick things. They're going to sound familiar that I think would fall into that bucket. One is I believe, and I think the point of these work sessions, correct me if anyone's seen something different, I believe that we still haven't seen a final Westchester County Department of Health permit for the septic. And I think I would want to see that before voting consistency, particularly now, because the latest correspondence for this meeting really references that as sort of a validation of the plan. So I'll note that. And then the two other things are, I just wanted to ask if Mazur was going to be able to join our next meeting, if we plan to ask them and if they'll be available. And then finally, the Colored Sessions memo, the last one we have, I think still has some open items. I've looked at it and I actually think it's workable. I mention it only in case we can get some cleanup if anybody is listening to just the submerged pipe network, rain garden. I believe it's all been addressed in the SWIP. It'd be nice to just get Colored Sessions to sign that off, but I do think that last one is probably workaroundable. So that's all I had. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, and the point about Mazur, I want to follow up with staff. We're going to have the engagement partner for the meeting.
I'm sorry. Did you mean is Mazur going to be joining us for the meeting today?
No, the next one, Amber.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the meeting on Wednesday, not for the work session.
Okay, I will send that invitation out to them. I know that they sent their invoice in, and I've forwarded to the appropriate parties who handle that. So I guess once that's confirmed, we'll get more clarity on that.
Remembering to bill is an important part of being a professional, I guess. But so is showing up for the meetings. Let's let them know that we think they're necessary for the meeting, so we can have a full discussion with the engineers. Applicant, of course, will have their people there, and the folks that we asked to consider this for the commission, I would like to hear from too. There's sometimes you get something out of the back and forth that is additive to what you have from the writing. You never know until you try. Okay, that's all I have on 1165 Grecian and completeness. We all, I think, understand the issues and have spent a lot of time with it. We'll all read the additional materials and we'll all be prepared to discuss all of our issues when they come before us next Wednesday night. We have 652 Shore Acres. Let me take these out of order because I want to, because I think we can get through 1025 Grecian faster, 1025 Rushmore rather. the club application, I took a look through, and I may have missed it somewhere. They now have, we had asked them for a few discrete things that they needed to come back with. One of those was to mark their wetlands, and we now know that they are within the 100-foot buffer. And we asked them to make sure that they've got a wetlands opinion, that they assure us that they're outside the mandatory view shed area. I'm sure they are. I'm not confused about that. And we need them to discuss our request that they consider the possibility of a permeable surface instead of an impermeable surface. I think those are not all closed items. As I look through it, somebody tell me if I missed it, because there was a lot of paper and I was looking through a lot of, and we have 3 applicants up and there's a lot of stuff. It's always possible that I didn't see it. But I did not see anywhere that they discussed. I saw a SWIP. I saw a lot of stuff about stormwater management, quality volume. I did not see somewhere where they discussed the alternative of permeable surface.
They did. They have you have to find the right document. They have a pretty responsive memo. Let me see what it's called. All the labeling was a little hard to follow. But if you look at HCZM cover response, letter signed comments, they do hit, in my accounting, like 3 of the 4 open items. So they discuss permeable paver systems, and they say they don't want to do it. And so you can read for yourself, and they have a write-up and some pictures. Yep.
This is it's the 4-page letter, 223.
Yeah, let's see. It's a February 23rd letter, and starts out right on the first page. It's addressed to Amber, and there's a number 1, use of permeable paver system for lower terrace on the first page.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the wrong document. Thank you, Seamus. I'm looking at the wrong document. That's why. And
Amber, I may want to share my screen in a moment, at least for the LWRP update for a minute, but I also might on this for a moment, if that's possible, to be permissioned for that. But Thomas, I don't want to, why don't you keep going on your train of thought here if you want, and I can follow up if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That was it.
I'm sorry. That was December 7th, you said? The letter?
Let me see. It is, if you're looking in Novus, and anyone tell me, yeah, if you're not, but yeah. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's the 5th from the bottom, and it's the first of the series that starts with Orient to BC. HCZM cover is the name of that. Yeah.
The materials that were uploaded on March 8th. Those when the new submission was uploaded. It should be.
I've got it. The Master Giacomo engineering
Yes.
letter.
Yeah.
I've got it. Okay.
And this one this one at least attempts, and I think they do a good job to sort of be responsive to the items that we raised one by one. So they're kind of almost non sequiturs. They've got like 4 or 5 in here, and they're the things that we raised on the last meeting.
Yeah. No, I see the walkthrough now. I had looked at the wrong letter. This letter addresses our open issues. Okay. Yep. I'll spend some time with the substance of them, but they're, facially, it looks like they responded to what we need. So that tells me that I expect to find the answers that we need in there as I go through it. Other folks, people looking for something on this one that we don't have?
Yeah, I may, I may share my screen here, because I've been trying to do this calculation. We can maybe look at it together, or we can just note that it's not clear to us. But they provided a cut fill file. It's the Orient to BC CFP, which I think is cut fill something, reduced working cut fill file. But tell me if anyone else has closely looked at this. And let me know if you're seeing it on your screen. But I think I'm seeing pretty substantial, perhaps net volume of fill. I know we asked for it to be within and without the title, but I guess based on the heading here, maybe this is all within the wetland buffer. So I believe that I'm seeing significant net fill in this tidal wetland, and there's not much discussion in that other letter that I pointed out of it, other than to just say that the calculations have been provided. But I don't know, again, maybe this is just something we have to have the applicant and their consultants walk us through. I'll point it out for the commission and leave it there unless anyone has additional thoughts.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not, I see what you're seeing, Seamus, and it does look like it.
Oh, sorry. It appears that
That's
they have,
positive.
it is a positive net fill. It's just not spelled out that way. I think they just broke it up into different sections from the calculations that they did it. So they did it in cubic feet and then they converted it to cubic yards. So if you add all
Yeah,
the,
which fine, but yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh, sorry. So if you add up all the bold areas without the parentheses, and then you minus that with where it says cut, that should give you your total net fill for the project, if I'm reading this correctly. So it looks like it's under 100 of cubic yards.
Yeah, and if you look at cubic feet, it doesn't matter, of course, right? But I guess what you're saying is the 526 plus the 897 minus the 650 is 775 or so.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So in this case, they have a total net fill of less than 30 cubic yards.
Okay. Okay, so that'll be
Yeah.
something to discuss, whether they can, if that's a small amount, whether it's redesignable or anyway. I just wanted to point that out to the commission.
I mean, it's net fill in a both a wetland buffer and floodplain. I mean, I thought we were very clear on it. I'm a little taken aback because I thought we don't deliberate it at work sessions. We need to understand what it is they're saying there, and we need to understand the difference between what we're seeing represented in what we think the cut fill says and what was represented to us by Mr. Schatz at the last meeting, because I thought I heard a very different answer. So we'll talk about that. We may want the applicant to know that that's going to be a particular area of focus, that the cut fill appears to be telling us something different than what we thought we were told by the applicant. Next time they should be prepared to address that specifically. All right, and does anybody have anything else on 1025 Rushmore? Not hearing anything. Okay, our third applicant is 652 Shore Acres, and this is pool work. They've made changes to the they've submitted a revised proposal to make changes to the floor plan. They've removed some flood area by making a previously two-story connection between the cabana and the main residence into a one-story bridge with an open ground level area, a few other things. What else do we think we need to know about 652 Shore Acres, if anything? Okay, my look at it, it's not obvious to me that we have an open item that I need further documentation on 652. Did anyone on reviewing it decide that there's something that they expect to see that they don't see?
What is the significance that of the fact that they have a preliminary approval of their letter of map amendment, but obviously, I guess it's pending?
Yeah, usually we like to have all other permitting agencies be final so that because if somebody else makes them change something, then that might change how it interacts with our policies. There are exceptions to that. I don't want this is a LOMA determination where what they're asking be approved as a change to the flood status, the flood map status. It's a letter of map amendment. So we're going to want to talk about that and whether we think that preliminary is final enough for our purposes in a way that we might not for some different kind of permit. I guess I'm tipping my hand what I think of that. There are circumstances where we won't hold if something's going to take forever and it's unlikely to result in any changes. We don't want to hold an applicant up forever waiting for it. That's how I'm looking at it, but everybody can have their own view about that. So we'll do at the top of that application, we'll do the permit checklist. That one I don't have in my head. We haven't seen them as many times. So we'll make sure that there's no outstanding permits that we're not comfortable with. Let's go over that one because it's been a while since we've seen them. Let's go over that one and make sure that we understand their issues and that we've got a closed record so we can vote. If there's some reason, if somebody spots something in their review and preparation for the meeting, we'll let the applicant know as quickly as possible so that they can hopefully address things.
Esteban, I
But
think I think we got a new SWIP here. So will we, or an analysis, let me just look. I haven't spent as much time with this one yet, this application yet.
Pardon me. So,
yeah, is that something that that Keller Sessions would plan to review?
yes. So everything from the last review memo, I will review and see. I think there was only a couple items, but I can definitely take a look at any adjustments to the SWIP to make sure it correlates with the current site plan.
Great, yeah, because I'm looking at the date of this and it was revised February 23rd. So if you could.
Is that the last?
It's the last one on the agenda. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it says it's dated July 10th, but which is sort of true, and it has a revision date. Yep. Okay.
All right, so that's 1165 Grecian, 652 Shore Acres, and 1025 Rushmore. Those are our applicant items. If we realize that there's something else that we need to deal with one of those, we'll let the applicant know as soon as possible. The only thing that we know for sure what we need to do is make sure our consultant is available for the review of 1165 Grecian. That moves us to administrative actions. Does anybody have anything else on the applicants? No. Okay. So administrative action.
I just really quickly wanted to run back to Orienta just because it was a little tough to follow. I just want to make sure that was the only item that you weren't aware of, Thomas, or that you couldn't locate the permeable surface aspect, the alternative to permeable surface, which you've cleared up. What's missing?
Yeah,
Like,
Seamus
what do I need to?
Seamus found that for me.
Right, but there was
Seamus found
nothing
that
else
for
that
me.
was, yes, I did catch that. There was nothing
Yeah.
else. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay.
Yep,
There
I
was
hear you.
nothing else, right? That I need to let the applicant
I
know
don't
to include.
I don't think so. I think we ended up getting everything.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there were no outstanding items there. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna spend a little more time with it, obviously, before they're up. And if I realize that I've missed something, I'll let you know. We can tell the applicant right away. But I think we got everything else we were looking for. Okay. So that leads us to our administrative items. Seamus, you've been taking point on LWRP, and I know you have a document. You want to take that?
Sure, thanks. Let's see, are you guys seeing this LWRP update file now?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I think I'll just very briefly, I think this will take 2 or 3 minutes, update you on what we've done since the last meeting. So Amber and I had a couple of calls, which were pretty helpful, I think. So we talked to Steve Gates, who's on here and can throw in, on 2 topics. So one is we scoped out adding a table of contents into the file. I think, Steve, that you've thought that might be 4 to 5, 6 hours of work for someone at your firm, but capable of doing it. And so unless there's any objections, I think we'll kick Steve and his colleagues off to do that. I think it'll, be an important milestone for just the document being usable and updated.
Always a good thing to have.
Right. And then had a call with Charlie Gottlieb, who's not on, I don't believe, tonight, but went through a handful of legal and code questions that have open comments in the draft. And he has committed to get back with his recommendations on either confirming the wording, updating it, or otherwise. So I'll follow up with him, but hopefully that's something that we can wrap into the next turn of the document shortly. And then finally, we had a discussion or 2 on the maps to try to improve the resolution of those, which was a request from the Department of State, but also, might just make the LWRP itself more usable. So Amber's been digging up files that have been in the village's archives and has found a number of them. So thanks, Amber. I think there's a little bit more to do to find backup or to recreate, but we've made a lot of progress on that front. We have, as you're probably seeing on the screen now, already inventoried the maps. Update since the last time we met is some suggestions on adjustments we would make to make these maps more consistent, to make them better resolution, to improve them. So no real discussion to be had there other than we'll continue to work down that path as well. That is pretty much it. So I'll keep pushing along on that. Welcome any comments to anyone who reviews these documents offline or wants to bring anything up right now. But I think that once we have the 3 things that I've discussed, table of contents, legal feedback, and map improvements in here, it's really going to be very close to a final document. We may need to pull together some sort of working group of this commission or others in the village, just like a final, get the right names of people on the first couple pages of who have worked on this and who are currently hold either office or commission in the village. Decide if there's some final improvements to make more cosmetically, and hopefully at that point it's something that we could recommend for adoption by the board if that's I think where we're ultimately heading.
Excellent. I just missed one minor thing on your table of map work to be completed. What was the significance of the red? There were 2 maps in red.
That's just that they're a duplicate. So the state, Yeah, so the Department of State asked for higher
So
resolution
you have-
specifically on one, so I raised that to the top, and then we ended up inventorying the whole list, so it's just a duplicate. So
Okay,
red's probably not appropriate for raising that, but good sharp eye.
yeah,
Yep.
just to do. Okay.
So unless any thoughts or comments, which I also always welcome offline, that's it.
Terrific progress. Thank you. It's moving forward under good stewardship. Thank you. Okay. Let's take the I-95 issue next because there's very little to talk about. We got a citizen correspondence about landfill on I-95 work. I guess so the first question is, whose jurisdiction is that? I think it's an issue of soil stockpiling, and the question is whether there is appropriate silt control on site. And so I guess we're going to need to know, and if we don't know now, I want staff to help us figure out whose jurisdiction is the actual work site under. Is it on village property? Is it highway? Is it state? And we can deal with that offline. You can come back to me on that, and we'll let somebody know. But they need to have silt fencing, so we've got to reach out to whoever's responsible for making sure that they're controlling silt on their work site so that they don't harm our waterways. You know, there's no magic exclusion for public projects, whether it's at the state or the county level. You know, we protect our environment from everybody. And then we have.
I will circle back with you on the answers to those questions. And
Thank you.
To be informed of the silt fencing issue.
Thank you. And then we have the Outfall Jetty. Andrew and I think we meant to and did not get a letter circulated to the commissioners in time for tonight. But what's going on with the Outfall Jetty is apparently there have been negotiations between the village manager and the county that we didn't know were going on. We had asked the trustees, and the trustees agreed to raise the issue of the incompleteness of some of the Outfall Jetty, underwater and surface stuff with us, because it hadn't really come before us for a review. There's a long history that doesn't bear rehashing here, but it was sort of skimmed by us, and we asked the trustees to re-raise it with the county because we thought a few changes were necessary and we could negotiate this pretty quickly and reasonably. And that's not what ended up happening. What ended up happening is the county talked to the village manager, and we didn't know that was going on. The problem is that has the effect of not having it touch the base of Harbor Coastal Review, which is not appropriate. Andrew and I have a draft letter. It's under some time pressure, so I'm going to try to get that around. I'm going to try to get that into Amber's hands tonight. And hopefully to everybody first thing in the morning, so that the commissioners can all look at it, comments back to me and Andrew only to keep it sub quorum. 3 people can touch it. More than that, we've got a quorum, and therefore it would have to be a public meeting. So comments only back to me and Andrew. And we've got to get a letter out to the trustees explaining why that's not a proper process, and it can't just be handled at a staff level. It has to actually, include the Harbor Coastal Commission. If anybody wants to sort of discuss that more, we can. but we should have had the letter to you, and it just didn't happen because we're all volunteers, and we all got busy, and Andrew thought I was doing it, and I thought Andrew was doing it.
Right, Thomas, and just to
Okay,
follow up
let-
on that, so the letter, we do have a letter. And the urgency is it appears that there was a negotiation and an agreement for more benches and some more light posts. So we want to make sure that we tell everyone that we'd like some participation in those decisions, because it seems like it is a done deal at this point, based on the correspondence that we've seen.
We can't create a precedent where, harbor, especially on a marine, where we're actually the permitting authority on marine structures. We can't allow a precedent that our review is assumed and in fact not done. We can't, it's not a delegable job. We can't tell any staff member, no matter who they are, even if they're really good, even if they're really competent, even if they're really smart. We, as appointed members of the community who do this job, can't delegate to staff, go work it out. We're fine with whatever you do. Staff can have, extensive conversations, all that's fine, but we have to live with the decisions. So decisions come back to us to get votes. And that didn't happen here. And so we've got to sort of set this right. Because if we don't, we're in a position where we're sliding down the road to not actually doing reviews for a governmental project, and that can't happen because that's not the law. Our LWRP requires us to review for consistency a project that is by a governmental entity the same way that we do for a private applicant. And if every one of our neighbors has to go through our process and deal with our policies, then so do the elected officials at any level. It's the way it is. Okay. So with that, the only other thing on our agenda, did anybody have anything else out on the Outfall Jetty? Okay. With that, the only other thing on our agenda is October minutes. I haven't spent any time with them, so we should hit this. I would rather kick that over and hit it on Wednesday night and approve those minutes, because I do actually read them before I sign off on them.
Fine.
I think we're through our agenda items. Does anybody have any new business? And hearing none, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for your time, folks. Always appreciated.
See you on St. Patrick's Day.
See you on St. Patrick's Day.
Sounds good. Good night.